Hey guys, welcome to another Adobe InDesign interactive tutorial. In this lesson, I'll show you how to benefit from using animation and interactivity in a branding design project. For this, we'll focus on creating a digital product presentation while setting up seamless button transitions that not only trigger the product in the layout, but also the corresponding color background. So let's jump into it and get started. All right, let's get started on creating our interactive product page layout for this branding design here. Before we get started, I want to note the document size I'm working on. In the properties panel, you see the dimensions. This is meant for an iPad Pro, so the width is 2048 pixels and the height is 1536 if you'd like to set up the same document when you're following along in this tutorial. And you can see this first page is the end result, and we'll be recreating the same layout down below on page 2. I've added all the assets in this tutorial in my library, but just look for it when I share this document with you. I'll add the colors, the images, everything else that you would need to follow along. So the first thing I want to do actually is create these colored backgrounds, okay? So I'm going to grab the rectangle frame tool. I've added a guide here just so I know how deep this is going to go. And then for the first one, I'm going to select this red color. And then instead of redrawing them, just go ahead and Option drag, or if you're on Windows, that would be Alt and drag. Click on this one, and the second one will be the blue. And the last one will be the green color. So these are the brand colors for these package images here of this coffee. So it's a fictional company called Pessoa Brazilian Coffee, and there's 3 here to highlight: a light roast, a medium roast, and a dark roast. So the red will be light, the blue will be medium, and the green will be the dark roast, or the bold. So I'm going to click on the red one first, and I'm going to go to my library. I'm going to add this in the document for you so you have it. And basically, I want to grab this logo here and drag it on the page. And then I want to drop it into this red version first. Okay. I just want to make sure if that's in there. If not, just to make sure, let's cut that. So go Command X or Control X on Windows. Just click on the red frame, right click, and paste into. Now that logo, you can see the donut is there, the content grabber. I can click that to access that logo. And I'm just gonna scale it up. So Shift Command and scale it up, and you can see that it's within this frame now, okay? So let's go ahead and move it to about here. And you have the option to tilt it a bit. So let's rotate it maybe 8 degrees or so. And then with this, what I want to do is also go to my properties panel, go to opacity, and change the blend mode to luminosity and the opacity to 10%. And you can see you get a nice little blend there. Blends right into that red nicely. Now before clicking out, let's add this logo to the other 2. So I'm going to Command C. You don't want to cut that. So Command C. Click on the blue frame, right click, paste into. And you can see I'm just going to bring it right down. And then let's do the same thing here. Let's move that over here so we know that it's going to paste in the right spot. Okay, so I'm going to right click and paste into, and there you go. So now we know that these are all set as well. And just so I know, let's bring this back up. I want to make sure that those are aligned, and they are. Perfect. So now we can move on here. For this, I'm going to grab my layers panel. Let's bring that over. And instead of calling these artwork 14, 14, 14, let's rename these, okay? This will be important when we set up our multi-state objects later on. So I'm going to click on the red one first. And you can see it lights up here in the layers panel. I'm going to click on it once till it highlights, and let's call this light roast background. Okay, light roast background. Let's click on the blue one. This will be the medium roast background. And the last one will be the bold roast background. Again, this is helpful when you're setting up the multi-state objects because you can see the name and you're just taking the guesswork right out of it. So bold roast background. Perfect. So now I want to reorder these. So I'm going to put light at the top, followed by medium, and then bold at the bottom. I'm going to select all three, make sure that they're all aligned, the horizontal and vertical centers, and then just bring them right up to the top and snap it from the top of the page and the guide that I've created there. And I just want to make sure again that I want to make sure that all those logos line up, and they do. That's important because when you're doing this, maybe there was a little shift there that I want to fix. Let's see. Okay, so there's that. Yeah, there's a little bit of a shift there. So that's something that attention to detail that matters. So what I want to do here actually is, let's copy this one again. And let's go to the medium roast because that's where the problem lies. I'm just going to delete this temporarily and then right click and paste into. And you can see now there's no shift. So just be mindful that when you're pasting these things, line up the frames so that the logo, when you're clicking through, doesn't shift over, because that's noticeable and it looks kind of sloppy as you're working. So make sure everything lines up and then you can move on. Perfect. Now that I have that in order, I can go ahead now and bring in the product images one at a time. In my CC libraries, I have 3 product images of the coffee bags that I want to bring into the layout. I'm going to click on the first one, hold my command key, click the other 2, and just drag them onto the page. Now I'm going to have them off to the side, or you can just grab them from the original layout when you open this document. But you can see that I have the red bag, which is light, the blue bag, which we'll put in the middle here. That is the medium roast, followed by the bold roast. Now I want to make sure that these 3 are in the same order as the colored backgrounds. This is important because when we're clicking through, you want to make sure that each bag corresponds with the colored background. So you can see I click on the light roast. That's correct, it's at the top. Medium roast is second, followed by bold. And you can see that they're in the same order in my layers panel as the colored background. So that's good. Let's select all 3 and let's make sure we add the align to selection and then align the vertical and horizontal centers. And again, I'm just going to scale this up by holding Shift Command and dragging one of the corner handles and just kind of eyeball it. I want half of the bag to be in the white space and then the top portion to be over the background like so. Okay, so something like that is fine, maybe a little bit smaller for now. Okay, and let's go ahead now and make this into, actually, you know what? Let's bring in the bottom bags next. So basically, we're just gonna be repeating the same process, but putting those bags at the bottom, which will later become buttons. We'll turn them into buttons to trigger this multi-state, as well as the background multi-state, as well as the details multi-state, and an animation as well. So what I'm going to do is bring in those bags again. I still have them selected. Let's just bring them in again. And again, just drop them in. That's the easiest way of doing it to make sure that they are all maintained as the same size. If you drag them in individually, they'll come in at different sizes. So just by dropping them in, they'll come in at the same size. So again, I want light, medium, and bold. Okay, and then just distribute them so the spacing is equal. Let's scale those down a bit because they're a little bit too big. We don't want them to be too big. Center it to that main product package, and then let's just bring them in. So bring in either the first or last one in closer, and then you can distribute them by selecting all 3 and then distribute horizontal centers. And then you're just gonna have to reposition it so it's centered to to the bag again. I'm just gonna adjust this so we get the full shadow on those bags. We don't want to have a cut off shadow. Okay, good, so those are all set. Perfect, so now I have what will become my buttons, and we can rename these buttons after. When we rename the button in the Button and Forms panel, it will also take effect in the Layers panel. So you can rename this here in the Layers panel first, or do it when we set up the buttons. Either one works. I'll do it when we set the buttons up. Okay, so for the details, let's do the same thing. I also have them set up. I'll have this in the document for you as well. So if you want to just grab these grouped details for light, medium, and bold, they will be available for you. So you don't have to do any text formatting or anything like that. So let's select light, medium, and bold and drag them onto the layout. And again, I'm just going to click, click, and click to make sure that they're all the same size. So that's important. And you can see this has the name of the roast, the level, the roast level. So that's a good way of highlighting that, so people know, how strong or how weak is the coffee. And then just a little description for each and some nutrition facts. Okay, so let's go ahead and highlight all those, align them center, vertical and horizontal centers. And much like we've been doing with the other assets on the layout, make sure that they're aligned in the Layers panel with everything else. So as long as you have everything as light, medium, and bold, light, medium, and bold, light, medium, and bold, when we set up the buttons, they'll actually trigger in that order. Okay, so we're all set there. I'm gonna bring these up. Let's bring it up so that some of it is in the red and the details portion of it with the nutrition facts are in the white area. I'm gonna bring it a little bit closer to the product so they know, that they're relatable, so that's important. And then you can see if I turn these on or off, I actually want to make sure that these are aligned to the right and not centered. So I'm sorry, align the left edges, okay? And then let's bring it in just a little bit more. Something like that is fine. I do have a buy online button that I created here, and I'll put that in the same area. Okay, let's move this off to the left then. Something like that, just to align with that. Perfect. So I have the details here, the buy online. We can turn that into a hyperlink, taking viewers from this digital publishing project, which you could either publish online or export as an EPUB fixed layout. And then by clicking that link, it would take them to another, a store an online store where they can actually purchase or order this product. Okay. So now that we have all the content on the page, I just want to add this logo. Let me just copy it here and paste in place. That's basically the same logo we put in the background. And then let's grab these details here, just the website, copy that, and let's Shift Option Command V to paste right in place. Great, so now that all the content is on the page, we can go ahead now and start adding the animation and interactivity. So let's do that next. For this next part, we're going to be using object states and buttons and forms, as well as animation to add all the interactivity and the animation. So I have buttons and forms open. I'm just going to group it with my layers panel. I have object states open. That will go into this window as well. And there's animation. I'm just going to add them all together. This way I can toggle through each tab as I'm working rather than going to the dock each time. So if you're new to InDesign, or if you're new to the interactive part of it, all these interactive elements and tools and panels can be found under Window and Interactive, and then those are the ones that we're going to need. So buttons and forms, object states, and animation. Okay, so let's start with the main product images first. Open your layers panel and then go ahead and select, or just select all three of these together, and you can see here they are: light roast, medium roast, and bold roast. Now what I can do is go to my Object States panel, and down below here, there's a Convert Selection to Multi-State Object. Let's go ahead and do that. And you can see that these are now, they're all on its own state. So that's exactly what we want. And you also notice that they're not shifting. The only thing that's changing here are the colors on the bags, okay? So that's important as well. Next, let's rename this to Product Bag Images, okay? How about Coffee Bag Images? Okay, great. Let's do the same thing to those colored backgrounds. So go ahead with the selection tool, make sure you're only selecting those three. And you can see in the layers panel, those three are lit up: light roast, medium roast, bold roast. Go back to Object States and convert that into its own multi-state object. Let's rename this Colored Backgrounds, or just Color Backgrounds is fine. And you can see there's the light roast, the medium roast, and the bold roast to align with the coffee images. We got to do it one more time here. Select the details. Okay, if you go to your layers panel here, you see light roast info, medium roast info, bold roast info. Go ahead and select, convert that into a multi-state object. And you can see, again, those naming conventions carry over to the object states. Let's rename this to Product Information. Okay. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead now and set up our buttons here. Actually, one more thing we want to do before we set up the buttons, because again, we want to set up the buttons and create all the actions at once rather than jumping from the buttons and then adding another animation or something like that. So I want to add an animation to the main product images. So let's go back to Object States, click State 1, and then double click to drive into that first state. Now we're going to go to Animation, and let's choose Fly In from Right. Okay. And the duration here, let's leave it on 1 second. That's fine. And let's have it fade in as well. Let's go back to Object States, click State 2, double click to drive into that State 2 selection, go to Animation and choose Fly In from Right. And you can see the event here is on state load, right? So that's what that's saying is we're going to set up a button that when the state loads, when we click that button, this animation will not only appear on the page as we set it up, but it will also come in with that animation, which is helpful. Duration, keep it on 1 second, and everything else is good. Let's go back to Object States, click on State 3, double click, make sure that you're double clicking. So click the state and then double click to drive into that third state. Go to Animation, choose the preset of Fly In from Right, and the duration's 1 second and everything else is good. So let's go back to Object States, click on State 1. Now we can go ahead and add the interactivity to the buttons. So let's click on the first one, and for this we're going to Buttons and Forms. The type of button here will be a button. The name will be Light Roast Button 1. The action here will be go to state. The object will be the coffee bag images, going to state 1. Let's add a secondary state. So go to state. So add a secondary action of go to state. This will be color backgrounds, and the state will be 1. Let's add a third action of go to state, and this one will be product information. So you can see we're setting up one button that triggers 3 different things, which is really cool. You could set up as many as you want, but you want to make sure that all of them are in the order that you want here before you add the animation action. Okay, so product information, light roast info. Perfect. Now let's add another action of animation, and you can see light roast PNG. That's the state 1. We want the option to play. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and also add a rollover state to this. Click on normal, double click, and let's change the opacity to 80%. Okay, so you go from the rollover to when you roll over it, it goes from a dim appearance to a full lit appearance, something like that, which is kind of cool. Okay, let's move on to the medium roast. Okay, and again, this will be a button. Let's call this medium roast button 1. Only reason is I'm putting 1 is because I've done a previous layout above with medium roast button without the 1, so I just don't want to have any confusion there. Okay, the action here will be go to state, coffee bag images, state 2, add a secondary action of go to state, color backgrounds, state 2, add a third action of go to state, of product information and medium roast info, and then the last one here is animation. Choose medium roast, and the option here is to play. Click on rollover, double click. Actually, let's go back one sec here. Click on normal, click rollover, click back on normal, double click to drive into the normal appearance, and make it 80% opacity. And you can see again we have the rollover state there, or appearance I should say. Okay, we have one more here to go. So let's click on bold. The type will be button. The name will be bold roast button 1. The action here will be go to state. The object is coffee bag images, but the state here will be that last one, state 3. Add a secondary action of go to state. Change the object color backgrounds. Change the state to blue. And let's add another go to state action with product information and then bold roast info. And then let's wrap this up here by clicking animation as another action. So 4 actions. Change the animation to bold roast and have the option to play. Click on rollover, click on normal again, double click on that third button to drive into the normal appearance, and let's set that to 80% opacity, and you can see we have a nice normal and a rollover appearance set. Now let's test this out. I know that was a lot of settings to go through, but that's why doing the prep work before and keeping organized and having things in the right order in your layers panel makes this process a lot easier. So let's test it out and see if we have to do anything here before we move on and publish this online. So in the EPUB preview window, it's going to load up here, and then we could test out our buttons and see if all the multi-state objects work as well. Okay, so you see that came in on page load here. You can see the rollover appearances all work. I'm going to click on that first one. You see it comes in. The second comes in, and the third. Okay, so you see there's something wrong here. I have to change the color backgrounds, and I also am not a big fan of the fade in here, so I'm going to change that as well. Let's go back to the buttons and take care of this first. So color backgrounds here has to be state 2, and that last one is probably not set. So let's go to color backgrounds. This should be state 3, so the green. I had it set to blue. So you can see how testing the buttons, looking at the work, making sure that that looks good before you move on. So state 3, and that is bold roast. State 2, and that is medium roast. State 1, and that is light roast. So this should all align now. I'm going to click on this again, go to animation. Actually, let's click on object states first, then double click there, go to animation. I don't like the fade in, so I'm going to say none here. Okay, and let's go ahead and do that to the other two as well. Let's click on Object States, click on the second one, double click to drive into it, go to Animation, and let's just turn the fade in off. Okay, and let's go back to Object States, click on that third one, double click, actually let's click here, double click, go to Animation, and let's not have the fade in. Let's turn that off. Let's have a look now and see how things look in the preview window before we publish this one online. So you can see this looks a lot better now when I click on each one. Not having that fade in, it just looks a little bit smoother, but you can see that the colored backgrounds now align with the product image as well. So now what we can do is go ahead and publish this online and see how it looks in a web browser experience. To share this project online, let's click on the share button in the upper right hand corner and then select Publish Online. That'll bring up your Publish Your Document Online window where you can rename the project. So I renamed mine to Branding Design Interactive Project. I only want to export page 2 because that's the one we worked on in this tutorial. I want to export as a single page, not spread, and then I'm just going to click Publish. My document is ready to be viewed, so I'll do just that by clicking View Document. That'll open up in a web browser. And let's test out the buttons. You can see they all work. The product images come in, as well as the color backgrounds, the description with the nutrition facts, and all the animation works as well. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to benefit from using animation and interactivity in a branding design project using Adobe InDesign. If you found it helpful, hit the like button as it helps this channel continue to grow. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel in order to stay up to date on all the latest tutorial content and get notified when a new video is released. Until then, take care and keep creating.